All right, I got in front of me here another one of my favorite Florida trees, and that is the Pignut hickory, the Carya glabra. Pignut hickories are one of the prime indicator trees of hammocks, music hammocks, also found in hydric hammocks. But they are, they're not anywhere you find them in Florida. There's a good chance there was historically hammock in that area. They don't show up in most successional hardwood forests in the peninsula of Florida. They tend to only really occur in areas where there historically was hammock. It's my observations. But this tree is a relatively slow growing hardwood, really hard, really heavy wood. Historically, they used this wood to build tool handles with and stuff like that. Anything where you really needed a hard, heavy piece of wood. In the landscape, they're relatively slow growing. They can be much faster growing on rich sites, but they form a big taproot in their first years of growing. So that first couple years is pretty slow, and you can't really transplant them when they're young because that taproot is huge. They're almost all taproot for the first couple years. Again, this particular tree in front of me is a stud of a tree. This is a really big tree here in central Pasco County. So again, the tree occurs naturally in hammocks, hardwood forests with mesic soils, which, moist soils. So this tree, you can see the size of the base of the trunk. There's my 1 gallon water jug for reference. So this is a really old tree. This is a big tree. So in terms of the foliage, it's mid-March here in central Florida. This tree is just kind of leafed all the way out and is flowering right now, dropping its flowers. Here's actually one of its babies here on the ground that's leafed out. It's got these really cool compound leaves. So that's, just totally indicative of Pignut hickory. And they have I really love the smell. They have a really cool smell to them. But the leaves on the mature trees will typically have, these have 5 leaflets. On the larger, like mature leaves, there's usually 7. So several other hickories have obviously the same kind of leaves, so it's hard to tell by the leaves. But another indicator for hickories, they have a unique feature is the bark. And the bark on a hickory, this is obviously a really big mature one, but you can see it kind of has like this laced pattern to it. It's very beautiful. This is again a really big one here. This tree's probably close to 80 feet tall all the way up in the top, but it's thick. It's a very thick trunk on this particular one. Pignut hickories are very resistant to wind. This tree here you can see there was a big limb right there that blew out of this tree during Hurricane Irma back in 2017. But there was like 100-mile-an-hour winds here almost, and all it did was lose that one branch. So they're very strong trees. They're really, really strong trees. They rarely go down in storms, at least here in Florida. So they make, obviously, a nut. The fruit, so to speak, of the tree is a nut. I'm looking for one here on the ground somewhere, but they're kind of hard to find during this time of year when things are, I might be able to find a couple remnants. Yeah, so here's a couple of the older nuts that drop down. Sometimes they get a bad rap because they drop a lot of twigs and nuts in the fall. Pignut hickories are fully deciduous. So they will lose all their leaves in the fall. And they get a beautiful yellow color and they drop their leaves. You can see all over the ground here the male flowers, the little catkins they're called. So flowers aren't particularly showy like most of your trees in this family. But again, Pignut hickories are a really good tree to have in the landscape. They're super long lived. They make great shade. They don't make super dense shade like an oak or something like that, because the leaves still keep some of this like kind of translucent character, which I think is something really interesting. But they have a really cool kind of shape to them, and they're, you know, it's not a tree you want to prune. They don't really like to be pruned. They don't like root disturbance. But once they're established, they are long-lived, very strong trees, and definitely one of my favorite trees, just because they're I don't know, to me they're just like the quintessential hammock tree to me. I love the shade that they throw in their bark, and I don't know, there's just something about them. It's definitely one of my favorites. So again, this tree is growing in a hydric hammock, like a little mound in a hydric hammock with sweet gum and live oak and red mulberry and you know, southern magnolia right here, right next to it, above me. So it's a common tree in that mixed upland hardwood forest, mesic hammocks that you'll find in the central and northern peninsula. And you will find Pignut hickory in Florida all the way down. It goes a lot farther south than the other temperate hardwoods. You know, you'll find it all the way in the central peninsula, all the way down to, you know, Loretta and north of Lake Okeechobee and stuff like that, as well as it will be a major component a lot of times of your like coastal subtropical hammocks, like you'll find in Manatee County and Sarasota County, and also in Pinellas County, with like live oak, cabbage palm, and Pignut hickory. Even when southern magnolias and sweet gums are not present, you'll still find hickories. So again, Pignut hickory, Carya glabra. If you're doing a native landscape and you want some, plant some shade trees, they're not the easiest tree to find nursery stock for, but man, they are really, really beautiful. And again, they're a little bit slow growing in the beginning, but once they get established, they're going to be there a lot longer than you are. So, Carya glabra, Pignut hickory, check it out.